Hey, good morning. Today we're going to talk about questions to move your next conversation along, kind of get out of that awkward space. And a lot of people will ask me, Tasha, okay, in this situation, what should I tell them? In this situation, what should I tell them? And here's the really, really big idea. It's not what we tell people, it's what we ask them. So today I'm going to walk you through some of my favorite questions to help you communicate better in your business. And the underlying premise here today is seek to understand before seeking to be understood. And when we are in a business and we're doing sales or doing recruiting or retention activities, what we're doing is actually leadership. I remember being at church a long time ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. There was a leadership workshop, and one of the speakers said, all leadership is helping someone to go from here to there. And so, by that definition, when we are engaging in sales, recruiting, or retention or leadership activities in our network marketing businesses, then we're in essence inside leadership. So here's the big problem, though. A lot of times we will define what here and there is, but that doesn't really matter. Peter Drucker says the purpose of every business is to create a customer. And so if we think about this customer first sales mentality, our customer comes first, our team comes second, our ego comes third. Our definition of here to there, it's really not that relevant. The only thing that's relevant is their definition of going from here to there. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. When we are in sales, retention, recruiting, leadership activities, our goal is to get them from here to there. Our definition of here and there, not that relevant. What's relevant is their definition of here and their definition of there. Pushy and salesy people spend more time talking about their ideas of here and there. And whenever I ask people, how does it feel to work with a good salesperson? They say they feel heard, the person cares about them, and they're working together. Now, the only way for us to be on the same page with the person we're communicating with about here and there is to ask questions. And I know a lot of people know that. People are like, ask questions. But honestly, guys, not all questions are created equal, because if we're asking the wrong question, we'll typically get the wrong answer and then we'll get the wrong result. And so part of being an effective communicator is knowing which questions will help you to get on the same page and which questions actually drive you further away from getting on the same page or will alienate your customer. Here's just a good example that I'm sure everyone has experienced in their home. One of my kids is melting down about something. And then my sweet husband will be, after a day of work, he'll be frustrated. He'll just be like, why? What do you want? What do you want? And he has this tone. And a question like, what do you want, is like the hardest question. It's literally the hardest question of our lives. Yet my husband is asking a 10-year-old who's in the middle of a meltdown what she wants. And I don't think that he means anything by it. He genuinely wants to know what she wants, but that's not a great question because it's going to alienate my daughter. It is a hard question to ask. It doesn't move the conversation along. And so what I'm going to walk through are the different types of questions. So if you are excited about this idea, I want you to write like, I'm excited about this in the comments. Real quick note, number one, if you want to get a copy of my book, I don't even have it somewhere, with all the processes to build a customer first business, write book in the comments. And then next week we are starting the Customer First Sales Mastermind, and we're going to work on your sales, recruiting, retention outlines together and install all of these questions. So just type more customers in the comments or shoot us a message and we will take care of it. You guys are excited and you want the book. All right, awesome. Okay, so pro tip, before we ask questions, we need to explain why we're going to ask questions. If we're going to just jump in with a question and people don't know the context of why we're asking, it's going to feel abrasive and invasive. And it's just like, right. So if I were just like randomly be like, so tell me about your health goal. What are your health goals? I'd be like, what? That would, kind of come out of nowhere. People are not used to other people asking questions. So the pro tip before I go over the questions is to use what's called a buffer, something that explains why you're going to ask the question. Something like, I want to personalize this conversation to what you care about. I don't want to make any assumptions, so I'm going to ask you this question. I want to make sure I understand where you're coming from. Can you please tell me more? This is a sales technique called a buffer. And really, although that's like the name of it, that's not the part that's important. The part that's important is that we need to know that everybody needs a reason. We need to give people a reason we're asking the question so they know our intentions are pure. Most of our clients, they complain about people don't know my pure intentions. I'm like, well, have you shared them, or are you expecting them to read your mind that you have pure intentions? That's ridiculous. So if we want to personalize a conversation to someone, we just need to say, I want to personalize this conversation to you. So, and then here's the question. And they're like, I understand why you're asking this. I'm more willing to answer. Now, you can do buffers, but if you have the incorrect mindset for asking questions, it's going to stall you out. I've heard people I've been in sales 22 years. And I've heard people say horrible things like ask discovery questions. It's like loading bullets in a gun. And that gives me the heebie-jeebies. So I just wrote, ew. And so if that type of approach to sales gives you the heebie-jeebies, just write ew or something in the comments, so I know I'm not the only one. And that idea makes closing a sale or making a sale adversarial. Like they're going to give me bullets and I'm going to kill them? Like that doesn't make sense. The purpose of closing a sale is to create a win-win scenario. Remember, we're trying to help someone get from here to there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to ask questions that help us to understand here to there. I like looking at sales as being a matchmaker. I was able to matchmake my friends Brittany and Ryan back in the day. And by doing that, I knew what their here was and I knew what their there was. And so it was a lot easier to find a match. And if we look at sales as matchmaking, I think it feels a lot better. Okay, so we've got some people who are ewing along with me. All right, so the first concept, and these aren't necessarily in perfect order. I just hope that you guys get one thing that's really helpful. So instead of asking, what do you think about that? Ask, how do you feel about that? Feelings create action. So what do you think? How do you feel? How does that sound? That's called a temperature check. But what do you think about that is going to get more objections. So if you're asking, what do you think about that? Ask that earlier in a sales conversation or like right after the agenda, like what kinds of things do you want to make sure we cover today? What questions do you want to make sure we go over? Ask that at the beginning. Do not ask that at the end when you're trying to move a customer into a sale. Feelings create action. And so when we're doing this, we want to ask a question that elicits feelings. So if you're at the end of a conversation and you're like, the next step is to blah, blah, blah. How do you feel about that? Right? That's a feelings question, which is much more likely to create action. If I say, what do you think about that? I'm sure you can notice that you're going to start thinking of objections, reasons why you can't take the step forward, which is what I would categorize an unselling behavior. We have someone that's ready to move forward, and then we say something that moves them backward. Guys, if we could just eliminate unselling behaviors from our communication, your sales would double or triple probably. So asking, what do you think is an unselling behavior? How do you feel about that is a selling behavior? Yesterday I was coaching one of my corporate clients was doing a strategy session, and this client or the person they were talking to was like, okay, so how much is this program? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, here's how much it is. What questions do you have? And he literally killed the sale. All he had to do was say, here's the price. How do you feel about that? Do you want to go ahead and move forward? Instead, the sale was not closed and he engaged in unselling behaviors. All right, so the second concept is instead of asking, are you interested? Ask something like, is solving blank problem something that's important for you and your family? So remember, we're trying to go from here to there, and this is a genuine question. If someone is not interested in solving, like for me, if someone's not interested in solving a sales or a leadership problem in their business, I'm not going to be able to offer them a solution that's going to be helpful. And so I need to ask a question like, is improving your sales something that is important to you? Is growing your business something that is important to you and your family? Are you interested in making more sales? I don't have enough information to answer that. It kind of depends, right? So, how is someone supposed to know if they're interested in a solution if they don't have all of the details? And so now we're presenting products instead of problems. So if I were to say, are you interested in the customer first sales mastermind? They're like, no. But if I were to shift and say, is right solving your sales and customer journey problems, taking customers and turning them into builders, something that's important for you in your business. Right now, I'm focusing on your problem as opposed to my solution. Nobody cares about our solutions. They only care about their problems and their goals. And so we have to ask them, is reaching this goal, is solving this problem something that's important to you and your family? All right, third concept, gain agreement. Always make sure you are on the same page. So as you're going through a sales conversation or a recruiting conversation, ask questions like, how does that sound? If they tell you a bunch of stuff, summarize. Hey, I just want to make sure that I understand what you're talking, like what you're trying to communicate, blah, 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 blah. Did I get that right? You can ask a question like, here's this, a lot of people use this particular product in this scenario. Do you see how this could help you? Now, if they say yes, cool, we move on. If they say not really, then we just backtrack a little bit and explain further. If we're offering someone a conversation, hey, we can go over XYZ. Is that something that would be helpful to you? Is that something you're open to? These are called gain agreement questions. People do not like to be told what to do. And so if we have an idea, we want to say something like, here's my idea. How does that sound? Here's my idea. Would that be helpful? Here's my idea. Is that something you'd be open to? Then they'll give you a yes or no. If they give you a yes, you move forward. If they give you a no, you're going to backtrack. The fourth concept, talk about when we're talking about questions, is this, what the heck is an open-ended question anyway? So I don't know if you've heard about open-ended questions. If you haven't, that's totally okay. I feel like in the network marketing industry, there isn't a lot of conversation about actual communication technique. It's just like, send this thing, move into action, fix your mindset, right? I think most of our clients are professionals, and so they want to know why they're doing what they're doing. They want to be thoughtful. So what's an open-ended question? An open-ended question is a type of question that gives people space to think, reflect, and then when they share their answer, you're on the same page. Once you and your customer or your builder are on the same page, it makes it way easier to collaborate and find solutions. So here's a few examples of open-ended questions. When it comes to your health, what kinds of things are important to you? How would reaching that goal impact your overall quality of life? Having a few open-ended questions. Now, I remember learning this idea of the onion, peeling an onion 7 layers deep. I hated it. I was like, that feels really invasive. I think one open-ended question, and the technique I'm going to teach you next, which is called developmental questions, that's good enough. And so if I ask a question like, when it comes to your business, what kinds of things are important to you? So you say, I want to, be aligned with my strengths. I want to be effective. I want to make sure I have time with my family and make an impact in my business. Okay, cool. How would reaching that goal impact your overall quality of life? Well, we would have income to do the things that we want. We'd be able to support our kids better. We'd be able to give. Okay, great. A couple of those is helpful. If I just keep going like, wow, why? Well, why? Well, why? Right? Like that's going to be frustrating. So we don't want to Ask any questions that would be frustrating. The fifth concept that I want to share with you guys is what's called developmental questions. And this is simply um, pausing and inviting people to share more. So if I were to say, how would reaching that goal impact your overall quality of life? And you say, well, I'd be able to spend more time with my family, be able to have some financial freedom. I've always wanted to, build an orphanage or contribute to one. And that would make me feel really proud of my life. You go, okay, great. What else? Or tell me more. Developmental questions like, what else? Tell me more. What's going through your mind right now are really awesome to deepen your relationship, deepen your understanding, and get past the surface, but they're not invasive. The question why I feel is invasive. I don't like it. It sometimes makes sense, but as a trainer, what I'm trying to do is give you questions that almost all the time work. Like 95% of the time, you'll get a positive response. It's very rare that you'll get a negative response or that people will put their walls up. I don't like why. It feels a little combative, and I think you got like a 50-50 chance it's going to work, and so I don't love it. What else I think is more likely to elicit a positive response? Tell me more about that. What's going through your mind right now? Um, I was talking to a friend who also works with clients, and I was kind of joking around about how I have this quality where when I do public speaking events, I make people cry. And she laughed and she's like, "You're so mean." I was like, "Yeah, here's my mean question that elicits so much emotion and connection. What's going through your mind? When was the last time, like when you got like pensive or you started reflecting, that someone said, what's going through your mind right now, and actually cared about the answer?" Now, the trick here, not the trick, the philosophy is that we're not asking these questions, like I mentioned earlier, to like load a gun to make a close. We're asking these questions unattached to the outcome so that we can actually understand what their definition of here and there are. So, to kind of wrap up, if you guys have questions, jot them down in the chat, and then I'll give you a couple of actions to take after this video ends. Oh, shoot. I totally lost my train of thought. Dang it, because I had a thought. Don't you hate it when that happens? Right, carrying on with the notes that are over here on the side. What was I going to say? Dang. Okay, well, anyways, it's totally gone, and whatever smooth transition I was making is totally gone. So here's a couple of points. Oh, it was about the gun, right? I think it was about the gun. So our philosophy is I'm going to ask these questions to understand what they're here and what there is. Okay, so here's how this looks. They're here. I ask questions like, when it comes to your health goals, what's important to you? How will that impact your overall quality of life, right? We have they're here and we have they're there. Then it's a lot easier to say, okay, now we're on the same team and our goal together is to go from here to there. And so here's my idea. Let me walk you through this particular kit and let's see if it's a good fit for you. And after each one, you're like, how does that sound? How does that feel? Do you think that will help you? And that's how we move these conversations along. Now, I'll summarize some of these questions really quickly. We're talking about asking, how do you feel about that versus what do you think? Asking, is solving blank something that's important to you versus are you interested? We're talking about questions like, how does that sound? Did I get that right? Would that be helpful? Is that something you're open to? When it comes to blank, what kinds of things are important to you? What else? Tell me more. These questions are not just for sales. They are for recruiting. They're for leadership. Most importantly, these questions are for life. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about sales training is it forces you to be a better communicator, which impacts your overall quality of life. My daughters are 10 and 12 right now, and they're becoming real people. And it is really freaking helpful that I know to ask questions like, what's going through your mind? Tell me more about that. when it comes to sports, what kinds of things are important to you? Um, thank goodness I have had this training because I don't think a lot of people know that those are the questions that we ask to connect with other humans and to be able to be the bridge from here to there, which as a parent or as a wife or just even as a friend, if I don't understand what here and there look like, how on earth can I be helpful on their agenda instead of mine? And people know when you're on your agenda instead of theirs. They know it intuitively, even if they can't consciously line that up. And so, learning how to ask good questions, which is part of making all your sales, recruiting, and retention outlines, impacts every single area of your life. I remember one of our clients who went through our recruiting mastermind. We do a lot of gaining agreement training in there. And she convinced her runaway team to come home using the gaining agreement questions that she learned in her recruiting mastermind. Zig Ziglar says you can't be one type of person and another type of salesperson. And so when we improve our communication skills in our personal life, they bleed into our business. When we increase our communication skills in our business, they bleed into our personal life. It becomes integrated. We weren't taught this when we were kids, these questions. People told us what to do, and we took it. And it is truly exceptional to be someone who actually cares about the answers to this question. So, my challenge for you today is to be exceptional. I have a couple of things that I think will be helpful for you to implement. I feel like I should have a copy of my book somewhere right here. The first one is the book, Customer First. And the philosophy is your customer comes first, team second, ego third. There's lots of good applications of these questions in the book. And then next week, we start our Customer First Sales Mastermind, and where we're going to do all the recruiting and retention outlines together. And I'll show you where all these questions fit. And we'll customize your outlines for your company. And then, so if you want info on how to get the book, write book. And if you want info on how to get into the mastermind, write mastermind or write more customers, and we'll make sure to connect with you. It's not too late. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you'd humor me and you're still here, if you could just jot down one takeaway, one thing that you found helpful today, that helps me as someone who creates content and videos for everybody. Just jot that in the comments. And I think that's it for today. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing day, and we'll talk soon.